So with photography, there's so many different styles of photography you can do. And one thing I've always wanted to try but never really wanted to pay the money for was to get a macro photography lens to take those detailed shots. But since I started doing videos on here, one thing I noticed was when I'm getting shots of products, whether I'm doing a video for it or photos of them, whatever it might be, I wanted something that I could get very, very close, detailed shots of that would basically magnify that shot and make it look huge. And that's where I bought this 90mm OSS macro lens from Sony. Now, one thing about this lens right off the bat is it is old. It is 10 years old. So it's a little loud and the autofocus is a little slow. And I'm gonna throw those out right at the beginning so you know there are two issues with it. But because it's a 10-year-old lens, those things are bound to happen. And there is not an updated version of this, and there's not even a rumor of a updated version of this coming. So Future Adam here. I'm working on editing the video you're currently watching, and guess what Sony decided to announce? A new 100mm F2.8 Macro lens. I'm glad they have that coming out. It looks like it's gonna run between $1,400 to $1,500. So it's gonna be about double the price that you can get this 90mm used. So if you're looking to get into macro photography, this is definitely a lens to check out. But now that I've got that short little part out of the way, let's look at some shots and go over some tests really quick, and then you can draw your own conclusions as to whether or not you want to keep it. So now that the intro is done, let's dive into it. So if you don't know anything about macro photography, the idea is to just bring small items to life, right? This one has a 1:1 ratio and it has autofocus. A lot of the macro lenses you'll find don't necessarily have autofocus. A lot of times when people do macro photography, they're doing detailed shots of products or food, and you're gonna have the time to be able to actually use manual focus. So just know if you're planning to spend a day out getting a ton of macro shots, that this does come in a little on the heavy side at 602 grams. Now it's not terrible, but if you're using it all day, it could get a little heavy for you. Let's go over the outside of this lens really quick because it is a little different than most lenses. You see here is actually how we do autofocus and manual focus, right? You push up if you want it to be in autofocus and down if you want it to be in manual focus. And you kind of hear that noise. So it is a little bit loud. Yes, it's on a table, so it echoes a little more, but you will hear that noise. And if you're in something like manual focus, when you turn this, it's actually gonna show you the numbers of where you're focusing in at as well, like the distance and the magnification really quick, right? So we can have all the way out here to infinity, and we can also go all the way back down here to the close focus of 0.28 meters or 0.92 feet. And on this side, we have our optical steady shot. So if you're gonna be doing macro shots handheld, this is gonna just help keep that lens a little more steady so your shots aren't gonna become blurry. You can turn that on and off. Right above that, we have our focus area limiter. So right now I have it on 0.5 meters to 0.28 meters. So if I wanna get those really, really close up shots, I can have it focused just so it focuses on what's really close to the lens. And then we can change that to infinity to the 0.5 meters, or we can have it on full. So we have the full range of all the way out to infinity and also all the way closest to the lens. My suggestion, pick the one you're gonna be using. Don't use full because the autofocus on this is pretty slow. And then obviously we have a custom button right there. And that's what the front element glass looks like. And then here is the back really quick. I have the lens cap off, so that's why you're getting that little hole through that end. One of the comments I made at the beginning was if you're using this, you might not want to use the full mode and you might want to be precise as to where you're shooting, right? Because right now I have it in the full mode, and when I step away from it, it's going to focus on those trees back there. But if I get very, very close and put something in front of it, as it's starting to try to focus on this lens cap, which it's not doing a good job of, now we're focused in on it, right? I can get a little closer if I need to, right? You can see that lens cap. Watch what happens when I drop this lens cap. You see how long it took to try to find the area in focus? I step in, it's doing a pretty decent job because I'm back farther. So just keep that in mind, that if you're trying to go full distance from like infinity all the way out, like you're doing a landscape and then all of a sudden something walks in front of you and you want that as well, that it's gonna take a minute to actually be able to get those in focus, especially when you're going from something that's very close in front of the lens to all the way back there. What we saw at the beginning is just gonna take a minute. We can see right there, good, it focused. Took a little longer than we probably would want, but you just see it's trying to pulsate, and there we go. Now it's in focus. So keep that in mind, that if you want to use this lens, that those focus limiters, try to know what you're going to be doing. If you don't mind having to wait, you know, an extra couple seconds to get something in focus, that's completely fine, but you can see what that did. Now, if we change the mode to the infinity to the 0.5, we're all the way back there. And if I throw this in front, it grabs it very quickly. You see the difference between this and it being on the full mode right there? Now we can even get closer, drop it, closer, right, as we go. And it's doing a really good job going back and forth. But it's when we turn it on to that full mode and try to have something right in front of the lens and then go back there where we run into the issue. But that's obviously because you're trying to focus on something right in front of the lens and then go to something all the way out. So it takes the lens a minute to catch up. So do keep that in mind. But now at the 0.5 meters to the 0.28 meter range, and look at that, right in, right out, get a little closer, stays in focus. We back up, it follows it all the way until that edge, and then you start to see it go out of focus. And then if we bring it here and we drop it, and then we bring it back up really close, it focuses pretty fast in those areas. But like I said, it's just when you're trying to go from all the way back there to all the way in front of the lens, that's where you kind of run into that issue where it pulsates a little bit and it's a slower autofocus. I am way, way too overexposed right now to the point where it looks terrible because I am not using any ND filters. Why am I not using any ND filters? Because I don't have any, because this takes a 62mm filter thread size, the one I don't have. So you can either buy filters that are 62mm for this lens, or the smart thing to do is, if you already have filters, buy a step up or a step down ring. So that way you can use those filters on your lens. One thing I will mention that I mentioned in all my videos, because I use this mode in my cameras a lot, is APS-C mode. I shoot with the A7 IV. And unfortunately, the A7 IV, when you're doing 60 frames a second, has a 1.5 times crop. And you can also take photos in that mode. So basically, my 90mm right here would become a 135. And if you do a lot of portraits, 135s is a great focal length for portraits that a lot of people love. So if you bought this camera and decided to get some nice B-roll, like we're seeing in this video, or anything like that, this will essentially allow you to do that at a 135 macro, along with a 90mm macro. So you're essentially getting that great portrait lens that would be able to do macro, but you're also getting this 90mm lens that can do macro. But I appreciate you hanging out with me. If you've got questions about this lens, drop them down below, because I'll be more than happy to answer. I've been doing photography for like 17 years now, but I've never actually owned a macro lens in my life. It just wasn't something that I ever thought I had a need for, but now I'm getting into it and I'm having a great time, especially since creating these videos and being able to get some cool detailed shots of some of the products I've been using and different things like that. It's just been very, very fun. But if this wasn't helpful to you, go ahead, you hit that thumbs down button. It's not gonna offend me. And drop it down below, like what I missed when I was reviewing this that you would find helpful in a lens review. So that way I can add it to like my list of things when I do camera lens reviews that I can make sure to hit on while I'm doing those reviews. But as always, I appreciate you hanging out with me. God bless. I'll see y'all in the next one.